Alright, YouTube, I got the transmission ripped apart a little bit. I'm going to show you what parts I've got off so far. When you take that cover off, that's essentially the torque converter housing. So that's the torque converter, that's the housing. In here, this is the differential, and that is the differential housing there. Differential goes in the other side here. So I cleaned that off with rags. I know I should have done better. Part. Look at that. I didn't know that was going to come out. So that goes in here. You know, I'm going to have to retrace all my steps here. Put these parts back exactly how I found them. But I'm hopeful I'll be able to figure out what parts are bad on this. I'm going to put this on the workbench next to other good parts. This has a very particular shape to it. It's actually tapered, so I think what this is probably the surface that this bearing turns on. I'm trying to listen to it, hear how it sounds, but I gotta just leave that there. So I cleaned these off. I got these. This surface is aluminum. I shouldn't have done this, but I took one of those like very mild abrasive pads and I hit it with a 90-degree angle grinder, and that got all the goo and junk off. There's dowels, just like we saw earlier. It looks like there's probably the one dowel that went to the engine, and then there's probably another dowel on the engine somewhere that like this one went in here that probably just stayed in the engine side. So I took off the oil pan. And this is a reusable gasket. It's very nice, some sort of a plastic type material, but these things are very reusable as long as you don't destroy it. And taking it apart, I was trying to get this oil pan off. I was a little overzealous because I should have had it off maybe a little sooner, but anyway, I had a bolt still in, and so I bent at the corner. But we'll find out if it'll seal. If it won't seal, I have to get a new oil pan. But let's see here. I wanted to show you this ring. This ring came off when I took the housing off here, the torque converter housing slash differential housing. So, but this is the interesting thing right here. This is the filter that, you know, all the fluid is supposed to go through, and I don't know what are the chambers of this filter, but what I do see is that the material is literally just like globbed up in here, and if you just kind of fish around just a little bit, you can see the hole. This wasn't filtering, okay? I can just tell you, this has a tear in it, and essentially it was just bleeding through the filter and going straight into the trans. You can see the bare metal through that tear. I did not tear that, okay? That was already like that. Bare metal with a hole in it. So, might have been fine before, but somehow this thing got a hole in it. When I opened this thing up, that filter material was piled up in there like that. Now, this plastic part goes up, so it pulls in through, you know, the metal hole, which essentially is the inlet for the fluid to be pumped through the trans. But when you have a tear like that, I mean, that's just very not good. You can see it, definitely not supposed to have a tear in it. So this should have been replaced a long time ago, and I'm gonna have to talk to a friend or look it up to see why exactly that happened. But this right here could be the source of the entire problem that we had. And when I took, you probably can't tell, but this is really brown, goopy, loaded with particulates. I don't know if you can see the dark particulates suspended in that, but there's a lot there. This thing should have had a lot more trans service than what it had. Look at that scum. That's just nasty. That's like sludgy, disgusting scum. And, you know, draining 4 quarts out and then refilling 4 quarts did not solve the problem. In fact, I think it exacerbated the problem that was already there. But this was going to happen no matter what because of that filter. So at this point I have I'll bet you everything I got, the valve body's in there. I don't know what's in these things or how they're put together, but them look like solenoids. How about that, huh? Electrically powered controls. Huh? Got wires going to it. Yep. And so we're just gonna have to find out what the deal is with this. I got a book on transmissions, but we'll just have to find out what's what with this. But see, there's the drive. Oh man, I can't turn it. I'll bet you it's stuck. Anyway, I can't lay this down now because it had the pan and I could stand it up before, but now I gotta lay it on that side. It's got all kinds of, oh yuck, grossness coming out of it. But this comes off too, and I'll bet you if you take that off, this whole thing is probably the valve body. I'm guessing all this, all in here, probably comes off as one piece. But there's a lot of moving parts here that I don't know about, so we're just gonna have to wing it. I might have somebody rebuild it, I don't know, but it sure would be neat to see what's inside, right? Yeah, I think it would. These are all little tubes where fluid can come out. These are all channels. Yeah, there's a plate, and then underneath it is all layers. You know, there's a whole little like a ant farm type thing all going through there, and that whole little ant farm has the outlets here, and then they let the fluid out when it's necessary. So sometimes it squirts out here, sometimes it comes out here, and if one of those little guys is clogged up, I'll bet you it wreaks havoc. So I don't have a parts cleaner or anything, so I'm just carefully wiping it and blowing it out. And you know, this is probably not the way that the professionals do it, but this is how I'm going to do it, and I'll bet you I can go far with it. For sure all the gears are in here, I definitely know that. You can tell, I mean, there's a gear here, and that turns the actual drive. So this is the transmission here, or right, this is the transmission gears. This gear essentially transfers power from that to the differential, and then from the differential you got your axle that goes out here and one that goes out that way. So well, let's get back to it and see what happens, huh? Alright, YouTube, the time has come to take care of this transmission. Now, who knows what that means, because I don't really know what I'm going to find. I read the entire classroom manual of it's today's automotive classroom manual for automatic transmissions and transaxles. And, you know, I've got the conceptual knowledge, and I know what the components are and what they do, but I don't know how they come apart or how they work. I know kind of how they work, but, you know, I've talked to someone, and he told me, you know, take that thing apart, man. He's like, once you get it apart, you should be able to check tolerances on stuff. You should be able to know the clutch packs are bad. The fluid in this thing was just disgusting, like milkshake thick. You could dip your fingers in it and like scoop it. It was so thick almost. I mean, it was you know, like honey, and in some spots. So my hope is that I'm gonna take this apart and I'm gonna find, oh, these clutch packs are bad. Like, all I gotta do is replace this and adjust the bands. So probably the first thing should have been to do a normal transmission service, but we're already past that point now. And I might have to bring this thing to him in a couple of cardboard boxes and show the parts, and he could say this part's bad, this part's good. But ultimately, it is going to happen, people. It's either we're going to take this apart and discover that it's way over my level, or I'm going to get in there, I'm going to find out what's wrong, put it back together, put it in the van, and voila, it's going to be fixed. This spline is just full of skanky, disgusting filth. There's another part here that comes off. The flat side of this part goes in here, and then it's got an internal spline. That part goes flat here, and then I hope and pray that this part is interchangeable both ways. There is a pattern of wear. It's a small pattern here, actually. Could be the outer ring. I do not know. But what I do know is that that will matter later. So, I learned a little something here. This ring, it's got a skinny diameter here and then a wide diameter here, but it matches up perfect on the small diameter to this one. So that's what I'm thinking it is. I think it matches up perfect to that. That's probably the idea. Look at that filth. Cakey, goopy filth. You can hold it, it's so thick. Look at that. YouTube, this is the parking pole. When you shift into park, that thing engages with this gear right here, and the car can only roll until this gear meets with that, and you can't roll backwards or forwards. That thing is pretty beefy. And when you take it out of park, it disengages. Amazing. Look at that. So basically, I'm at the point now where I've got everything that I can get off of the gear part of the transmission. There are some things in there that are pressed in. I talked to my transmission buddy. He said, show me the clutches first. I described these to him, and he said, yeah, the clutches are bad. So him just hearing my description of the clutches was satisfactory to know that for sure the clutches are bad. But we're going to go over them, you know, and the details of this on Saturday. So I'll have a little extra information the next time I come on, and then hopefully I'll be putting in new clutches here. I don't know if more disassembly has to be done. I hope not, but I think that it probably will. But at this point, I'm just going to show my transmission friend these clutches, and I believe that he's going to have some good answers for me on what I should do next. You know, the thing about a job like this is, like, I can get in easily way over my head with parts. There's lots of parts here. I know it just looks like a couple things here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but actually each of these comes apart into, like, 5, 10 different parts, and then in between each one is a bearing. I even found this one bearing. I had reassembled the whole thing, and I thought this bearing went on the other side, which is the input-output side of the transmission, and it doesn't. It goes on this extension housing on this side of the transmission. So once I had it apart, I went and rewatched my videos over and over, and I finally was able to figure out where that darn thing came from. And when you take it apart, everything is kind of stuck together because it's got the fluid in there and everything, so you got a perfect flat metal surface on touching another one, and they just like to stick together. Well, if you set it down on the bench for 10 minutes, fluid could separate, and then it could drop down, and then you don't know where it came from. So, or you pick it up, and then once you're holding it for a couple minutes, and you realize, which is what's happening to me because I'm just learning how to do this. So, I realize that there's people out there that do transmissions every single day, and they could do this in their sleep. And obviously, if any of you guys are like that are watching this, then thank you for watching my channel, considering the lack of knowledge here. But I'm trying to show the general public that it is possible to teach yourself these things. It's not easy, and it's often a quest to go out and find somebody that's willing to contribute some information. But I went on the internet and I found out some valuable information about these transmissions. I saw a guy taking one apart from a slightly later model, and there were some similarities there, and he was demonstrating what order to take things apart. I have a classroom/shop manual for college transmission class, and of course it's nothing without the teacher, but just the same, the manual, the book, it's a big deal. It's got all the parts. It describes everything to you, what it looks like, the way it works, what its purpose is, how to tell if it's good or bad. And so I've worked my way through the book and everything, and the book has been extremely helpful. But this is a very hands-on type of thing. They describe something to you like a gear set, and you got gears. These are, as far as I understand, these are pinion gears, even though they're not in a differential. So the guy is talking about these, and I'm over here going, what do you mean there's 4 gears inside a gear? Like, what does that mean? How does that work? And that's kind of how it works. It's amusing. It's amusing that you would have to try to figure this stuff out. It's not as easy as it sounds, really. But anyway, I would encourage anybody that's watching this video, don't be scared to take apart your transmission. I mean, if your car is grounded, you got nothing to lose. And if it's not out yet, I got this thing out, and I never took one out before. I know how to turn a wrench. I got some basic hand tools. I worked my way up and gradually got more and more tools. And this has become kind of a cool project. There's not a lot of work going on. I'm just like bragging to my friends that I have a transmission on my workshop bench. But this thing, best believe it's going to be working, because I got a good feeling about this. I think everything is going to work out fine. It's always a big question in my mind. Am I going to end up at the mechanic's shop? Because that's always the last resort with these types of things. I gotta go to the mechanic and have the mechanic fix up my mistakes. But then you might tell me you need a new transmission. But still, I could take this. If I ruin this, I could take it out and put another transmission and still end up with a van that's worth, for the money I put into it, it's worth 10 times what I put into it with fixing the trans, even if I did have to replace it with another used transmission. So, just take a little encouragement from this video. I mean, you guys can do this too. If you're handy and you want to be handy and you're not, or you always break things, learn how to fix it. It's a lot of fun figuring this type of stuff out. I'm spending my winter this way. I basically don't have a lot of work right now because of the seasonal work that I'm in. A tree business doesn't have a lot of work during the wintertime mostly, and occasionally there will be a couple wintertime jobs, but mostly it's fairly quiet during the cold season. Not a lot of calls, not a lot of money. So I occupy myself with maintenance and things like this, and of course we had this thing break down, and it was basically a chunk of scrap metal until I can make it work again. So I left it there, and we made do up until now, and we'll hopefully be able to we got a cheapo vehicle, we'll be able to sell that when we fix this, you know. And so I've often thought I'd part this van out, and if I could sell all the parts off of this van for what they're worth on the used market, I could make a lot of money. I mean, there's a reason why junkyards stay in business. It's a money-making scheme. I mean, you can make loads of money off a good car just by taking the parts off of it and selling them. But that wasn't really the original intent here. The original intent was definitely to take this trans out and to rebuild it, or have somebody rebuild it. Even if I paid the full rebuild price for a shop to do it, I would still be saving the money on removal and reinstallation. So I hope this video has encouraged you guys that you also can take the covers off your transmission. Don't think when you take the cover off everything is just going to fall out. You have to physically remove it, which means that you have a chance to take pictures. You have a chance to put everything in order from left to right. If you're disassembling to the left of it, you know, you can organize things, or disassembling to the right. You can do a full layout if you want to. Take pictures of it as it comes out, and you'll know how things go back in. I mean, there's just a couple simple rules to follow. I mean, you don't want to put a substance in there that should not be in there, a corrosive substance. There's certain cleaners that are appropriate, certain ones that are not. It's research that you have to do to find out. Now, me personally, I've used some paint thinner, I've used some acetone. I don't like the acetone because it puts this awful noxious vapor in the air, and it just gets all over. It's very, very toxic smelling, and it evaporates super fast. It doesn't even seem like it fully has a chance to clean by the time it's evaporating, and it's more expensive. Paint thinner is actually really cheap. I paid 20 bucks for this big jug right here of paint thinner from the local farm supply store. So, you know, like these clutches, they're springy, and I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but these are not laying flat. And the trans guy said when these things are not laying flat, that's how you know they're bad. They're probably missing a lot of material, but I don't really know how to demonstrate what they should be, because I don't have a good one to show versus the bad one. But I could include that in a future video. Leave it in the comments if you guys are interested in seeing what like a bad clutch pack versus a good clutch pack looks like. And then also too, you guys, be really careful with these aluminum. These are cast aluminum covers. These are bendable. Like, you can really damage these. So be careful with this aluminum stuff, because I would bet you that it would be so much to replace that at that point you might want to just buy another trans. So, you know, I don't know how much they cost, but you're basically stealing a part from a transmission that had this, and so you know, it's just tough to find those types of things. But you know, let me just summarize by saying that you guys can do this. There's no question that it is possible for the average man to learn how to do this. There are those who have self-taught how to do a transmission job. There's always details that you have to acquire from different sources, but hopefully this video has included some details that will be of help to you. Take it easy, YouTube.